America is a country built on progress, but MAGA wants a refund. They look at history like an old diner menu, pointing at the past and saying, yeah, I'll take 1953, hold the civil rights. MAGA loves to act like they started a great political revolution. But let's be real, they barely squeaked by with a system rigged in their favor. Trump didn't win by some overwhelming mandate. He won by a technicality, like a football team that only makes the playoffs because of a weird tiebreaker rule. And yet, they're out here celebrating like they just stormed the beaches of Normandy, when really, they just took advantage of a broken system and got lucky. The Electoral College is the participation trophy of democracy, and somehow these guys think it makes them war heroes. MAGA worships the self-made man, which is why their two biggest heroes are a guy who inherited a real estate empire from his racist dad, and a tech bro whose family literally owned an apartheid emerald mine. Yeah, real bootstrap success stories. If Trump and Musk had to actually start from zero, they'd be selling bootleg energy drinks out of a van. Trump's entire career is just scamming desperate people and slapping his name on things that other people built. Trump steaks, Trump vodka, Trump University. He even tried to sell a board game. A board game. Yeah, nothing says business genius like failing to out-hustle Monopoly. And then there's the casinos he bankrupted. How the fuck do you bankrupt a casino? And then there's Musk, the guy who convinced people he's Tony Stark, when really he's just a South African Lex Luthor with bad memes. This is a man who was born rich, bought his way into companies, and still somehow thinks he's an underdog. He spends more time arguing with teenagers on Twitter than running the companies he pretends to have founded. The only real innovation Musk ever had was convincing people that being rich makes you a genius. MAGA loves to call everyone else sheep, yet somehow they've been the ones let off a cliff by a trust fund baby in a spray tan and a tech bro who thinks memes are a personality. But you know why they keep winning? Because they actually show up, while half the country treats democracy like an optional side quest in a video game. They vote in every election, local, state, national. They flood school board meetings. They call their representatives. They turn civic duty into a blunt weapon wielded by people who think climate change is fake, but satanic child trafficking rings are real. Pizzagate, anyone? Meanwhile, the left treats voting like flossing. Important in theory, but they'll probably skip it unless someone guilts them into it. They talk a big game about democracy, but when it comes time to participate, half of them are too busy writing Twitter threads about how voting is a form of violence. MAGA doesn't even need 51%. They just need enough people to stay home. Voter suppression? Sure, that plays a role. But nothing suppresses voter turnout quite like apathy and purity tests. Every election cycle, the right treats it like a holy war. The left treats it like a group project where no one wants to do the work. MAGA will crawl through broken glass to cast a ballot for a guy who looks like a sentient can of dip. But a Democrat will stay home because the candidate didn't endorse universal dental. MAGA is in it for the long haul. They don't just vote every 4 years. They infiltrate. They take over local elections, school boards, state legislators. They're playing the long game. The left? The left is still arguing over whether voting is worth at all. Civic duty in this country is so dead that if the government put polling places inside of a Starbucks, half the electorate wouldn't vote unless they got a free pumpkin spice latte out of it. MAGA treats democracy like a hammer. The left treats it like a suggestion box. And the rest of the country just ignores it like a terms and conditions agreement. But let's be real. MAGA isn't winning because they're politically savvy. They're winning because Americans are scared of the future and are throwing a nationwide tantrum to try and stop it. MAGA isn't a political movement, it's a midlife crisis with a voter base. It's a bunch of people screaming, "Make America great again," because the world changed and they don't know how to cope. This isn't about policy. This is about comfort. America is moving forward, and MAGA is the guy standing in the driveway in his bathrobe, shaking his fist at an electric car because it doesn't make the vroom noises. They say they want to take their country back. Back to what exactly? To the 1950s when you could beat your wife without consequences? Or how about the 1980s when Reagan convinced you that the billionaires were just middle-class people who tried harder? MAGA voters don't actually hate progress. They just hate that it doesn't revolve around them anymore. They're mad that their grandkids don't ask them for advice because they can just Google the answer in 3 seconds. And this fear isn't exclusive to MAGA. It's an American tradition. Every generation panics when they realize they're no longer the default setting. When women got the vote, men lost their minds. When Elvis shook his hips, people thought it was the end times. When schools desegregated, conservatives swore the country was doomed. And now it's drag queens and oat milk. They pretend this is about preserving tradition, but really they're just scared of a world that doesn't care to cater to their insecurity. Progress freaks them out because it forces them to realize that maybe, just maybe, they weren't special. Maybe the world was just rigged in their favor, and now that the playing field is leveling, they're throwing a fit, like a toddler who just learned what sharing means. MAGA isn't about making America great, it's about freezing it in time, locking the doors, and hoping the future gets lost on the way there. MAGA doesn't want to build a better future. They just want to scream, "Mine!" until the world stops changing around them. And when clinging to the past doesn't work, they do what every spoiled brat does. They throw a tantrum and make it everyone else's fucking problem. MAGA is what happens when an entire movement decides that being mad is easier than self-improvement. It's not a political ideology, it's a lifelong subscription to grievance therapy. These people scream about personal responsibility, but the second something goes wrong in their lives, it's the fault of immigrants, China, or a woke M&M. They're the only people who can crash their truck into a ditch and blame cultural Marxism. They love to talk about hard work, but they keep electing guys who gut public education, strip unions, and let corporations pay poverty wages. It's like screaming about how much you love food while setting your kitchen on fire. MAGA is politics for people who want to complain without contributing. They'll sit on Facebook all day talking about how lazy younger generations are, then vote for politicians who cut job programs, jack up housing prices, and drown the younger generations in student debt. They're always talking about how soft America has become, yet they'll lose their minds if a Starbucks cup has the wrong color on it. Imagine storming the beaches of Normandy only to find out your grandkids are boycotting Disney because they cast a black mermaid. At its core, MAGA isn't about fixing problems. It's about making sure someone else gets blamed for them. The economy sucks? Blame immigrants. Your job got outsourced? Blame the globalists. Your wife left you? Must be feminism. It's never their fault. It's not a political movement, it's a tantrum with campaign merch. The slogan isn't "Make America Great Again," it's "Why should I have to change?" wrapped in a flag and sold for $29.99 plus shipping. MAGA isn't about fixing America, it's about making sure someone else gets blamed when it falls apart. And what's the best way to avoid responsibility? Convince your followers they're the real victims, even when they're the ones in charge. MAGA keeps saying they're going to take their country back. From who? They own the Supreme Court, half the states, and the police unions. They are the establishment. They're the ruling class cosplaying as the underdogs because they can't stand the idea that their problems are self-inflicted. They claim they're the toughest, strongest Americans alive, until a Starbucks cup has a rainbow on it, and then suddenly they need therapy. Every election is the same grift. The radical left is coming to take your freedom. My guy, they can barely take the midterms. If they were actually waging a revolution, you wouldn't be here to whine about it on Fox News. MAGA is a movement built on the fear of irrelevance, led by men who were born on third base and act like they hit a triple. They whine about being silenced on a 24/7 news cycle that exists solely to amplify their bullshit. They scream about being canceled while headlining CPAC. They whimper about persecution while getting their asses kissed by billionaires who will drop them the second they stop being useful. This isn't a political movement. It's a self-help group for people who peaked in high school. It's an entire ideology based on the fragile egos of men who can't handle that the world doesn't revolve around them anymore. And the worst part? It works. They aren't winning because they're strong or smart or capable. They're winning because they know how to play the victim while holding the whip. And until the rest of the country figures that out, we'll all be stuck in their fucking pity party paying the bill while they cry about how oppressed they are from the driver's seat of their lifted F-150s. MAGA won't die alone. That's the joke. They'll drag the rest of us down with them, kicking and screaming, all because they're too scared to face the future like fucking adults. America isn't being destroyed by radicals, immigrants, or wokeness. It's being held hostage by a bunch of overgrown children who think losing privilege is the same as oppression. So go on, keep screaming into the void. Blame the libs, the immigrants, the deep state, whatever helps you sleep at night. But deep down, you know the truth. The world evolved, and you didn't adapt. Now shut the fuck up and deal with it.